You're listening to the Bulldog Hour, getting you inside the Wilson football program with weekly game previews, recaps, highlights, and interviews. Now, here are your hosts, Joe Mays and Justin Rapoff.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the Bulldog Hour. I'm one of your hosts, Joe Mays, and sitting here next to me is my co-host, Justin Rapoff.
Yeah, it's great to be here, and we always talk about some weeks are a little more fun than others, and hopefully this will be one of those fun ones.
Yeah, this sets up to be a good night for us because we get to talk about Wilson's first victory of the 2022 season. It comes over the Central Dauphin Rams, who dropped to 0-2, and things are looking a little rough in Harrisburg for CD as they have to play Coatesville now next week and are staring down 0-3.
Right. We'll talk about the CD game. We'll talk about that, recap that a little bit in just a few minutes. But I know when we were talking before the game and that was brought to our attention, I was like, ooh, geez. And it's interesting because you and I talk a lot, and not just us. Lots of people talk about the similarities or I don't even know the right word, but just kind of like how you get a lot of people who compare the Wilson and Central Dauphin programs to each other oftentimes. I know there are some differences, but they are in general, they are usually a pretty good comparison for those.
Right.
For those two programs in District 3. And so, we always talk about, and we talked about it on last week's show, all right, about the schedule that Wilson has, and, playing Roman Catholic, and then playing Central Dauphin, and then playing MLK out of Philadelphia. This is kind of dictated by the bias, but then having Mifflin as well. Wilson always has this non-league schedule that's just absolutely brutal. And then you look at Central Dauphin, and I just had to chuckle a little bit because we talk about that with Wilson all the time, but Central Dauphin is always scheduling Wilson. When we talked about numerous times how that is an issue, a lot of teams won't do it. And then you have they played I forget who they played week 1, but
You're talking about Central Dauphin?
Yeah,
Central York.
Yeah, they played Central York week 1, who has been really good the last couple of years. And then they play Coatesville next week. Talk about a brutal run. Oh, and then that all dumps you off into the biggest section of the Mid-Penn, or division, I guess they call them. But, the biggest division of the Mid-Penn. So, right. Yeah, it's just... Whew. And again, it's just another parallel in my mind of the two programs that get compared so often, also both having brutal non-league schedules.
Right.
So.
Yeah, it's Wilson Central Dauphin, like you mentioned, for everything you just said, just very comparable, very similar. And we've been excited for a long time that they've been able to play each other, Wilson and Central Dauphin, from 2014 on now. There have been a gap of many years. Wilson didn't play Central Dauphin for 9 seasons, regular season or playoffs, between the District 3 championship loss in 2002 up to the District 3 championship loss in 2011.
Right.
And then we got to play them every year since 2014.
Right. And what's crazy,
at least once.
Right. And so that's crazy because when you look at it, that's one of those things where there aren't a ton of games. What is it? 13 games, 13 matchups between the two schools? Something like that?
Yes, because entering this game, Central Dauphin led 7-5 in the series record,
So when you look at it, 13 times, and most of those have been in the last decade, because of that, how we picked up that regular season and playing them early in the non-league schedule. But it feels, I don't know, it felt more familiar to me. Maybe because that that overlaps with a lot of my time following Wilson football so closely. Maybe that's why it feels like such a familiar,
right?
I'll say rivalry, knowing as much as that non-league,
Yeah.
and separated by an hour drive is going to create, but yeah, it's just one of those things where you know exactly what you're going to get, and to paraphrase our buddy Andy Herr on his tweet, he saw the score and was essentially, and again, this is the paraphrase, but just yep, that's about right for a Wilson Central Dauphin game. He's like, I don't know how you would expect anything else, which is in part what drew our attention to that Central Dauphin score last week, that they'd given up over 30 points, because that doesn't happen to them very often.
Right.
Right. So
no, you're right about that.
Yeah.
So they lost last week to Central York. Before we do housekeeping and the highlights and everything, we're going to just take a trip through District 3, 6A, because there's a lot of teams playing each other in these first few weeks that will have a huge bearing on the power ratings, which I don't believe will be. I mean, they may be out now, but they won't be useful for at least another 3 weeks. You have to be 5 games in for to have some sort of picture come out, and even then, they're so volatile that you can monitor them, but there's so many moving parts, as we've seen from me trying to predict as we into week 7 and 8, try to figure out how things are going to play out. One change here and there, and there's a massive overhaul.
York Tech got a win this week, by the way.
Yeah, over Kutztown.
Yeah, I know.
Picked that one wrong. Picked Kutztown. My Fearless Friday forecast debut is not going well.
Was pretty fearful.
Yes. I mean, I'm not invoking fear in my competitors, because I am really bad.
Maybe afraid to make picks next week is what you're saying.
Yeah, for sure. So, the District 3 6A teams have overlapped a lot. In week 1, Manheim Township played Cumberland Valley. Cumberland Valley won. We know that Manheim Township then got to play Dallastown, and Manheim Township whooped up on Dallastown. Cumberland Valley then welcomed in Central York, and Cumberland Valley eked out a win versus Central York.
After winning a close one against Township in week 1.
Cumberland Valley and Manheim.
Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, and then we know Central York beat Central Dauphin. Now Wilson beat Central Dauphin. York lost in week 1
to
Woodland Hills, but they got stopped on the goal line on 4th down, last play of the game.
A yard. They were a yard.
They needed
short.
A yard, and they couldn't get it with that incredibly talented running back Jaheim White, who's committed to go to West Virginia. I mean, still having a great season, but they stopped him on 4th and goal from the 1 on the last play of the game. And then York had to go to Hempfield this week, and they lost on a late fourth quarter, final minute or
12 seconds left.
Yeah.
Hempfield scored and got a 2-point conversion to win by 3.
So there's a couple good teams that are sitting at 0-2, teams that are historically playoff caliber teams, at least the last few years, in York, William Penn, and Central Dauphin. But those are some of the big names, and obviously we know Harrisburg. They just beat up on Delaware Valley, and Delaware Valley has been in the at least the the state quarterfinals, if not the state semifinals, the last couple of years. It's an interesting start to the season. I think Harrisburg is probably the odds-on favorite there in District 3 6A.
Yeah.
But it is a long season. As we found out last year, I don't think anyone after 5 weeks thought Wilson would be in the district championship game. So, it's a long way to go, only 2 weeks in. But that's a little preview of what's happening around 6A and District 3 as we wrap up here week 2 and then look ahead to week 3. But before we get to our highlights and stats from Wilson's win over Central Dauphin, let's do our weekly housekeeping and announcements, and start off with our sponsors. This week and every week, we are once again thankful to be presented by May's Sandwich Shop, and we appreciate the support from my dad, Bill Mays, and also all of our other sponsors, and there has been a lot. We are thankful and appreciative of all of them, including Mike Drago and MikeDragoSports.com, the Hop family, and our 6 anonymous donors. And I did not add Andy Herr to this, unfortunately. I missed out adding Andy, or I did it and I apparently didn't add the most recent one. So we do appreciate everyone's sponsorship, and I gotta remember to bring up the one that has Andy on it next time.
Yeah.
This one might be this one. Let's do this on the fly. Look at that.
There we
Look at that.
go.
There it is. Okay, there you go, Andy. I had it made, just didn't import it. So there we go. So yeah, Maze Sandwich Shop, MikeDragosports.com, the Hop family, Andy, her, and our 6 anonymous donors. Very, very happy that all of them have stepped up to the plate and supported us here for the 8th season of the Bulldog Hour. And there are additional ways to help us out here besides sponsorships, advertising, and the in-kind donations. The biggest is visiting BulldogHour.com for all your Wilson football needs, announcements, history, statistics from the past. It's a great resource for everything that's going on. And then, of course, Justin's favorite.
Yeah, like and share. We get feedback each week when we see people at the games, and you like it, spread the word. That'll help us get more stuff out there.
And our next live show will be next Sunday, September 11th, 8:30 on all these broadcast platforms. Remember, we are all over Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, and Twitch to watch the show. And obviously, we also have Instagram accounts too. So you can find us all across social media, and hopefully you'll take advantage of that. But be here at the same time next week to catch our next live show, which will be episode 9 of season 8. So the Wilson football schedule is as follows. We are all the way at the bottom of that first column.
Insane.
We are, really, when you include all that preseason stuff, we're a third of the way through the season after this week.
Yeah, well, and that preseason stuff is when our like in terms of the show season ramps up. So we're and honestly, with the off-season shows, we're more than a third of the way through the shows, even if we make a run into mid-December.
Yes.
So it's just kind of crazy how once it's here, it goes so quickly. Well, when you look, what's today? The 4th. Next week, you can start referencing that as like the beginning, middle of September already next weekend. So
yeah,
pretty crazy.
Oh man, the season just flies by so quickly.
Well, it's only a matter of days till your Christmas tree goes up, I'm sure. So it's not that big of a deal.
I don't know that I go by days. I mean, you could certainly probably count down weeks because we got to be.
Yeah, but it's the beginning of September and it's not months. So
You're
I think that gets the message across to our viewers.
Technically, it is months, and honestly, you're pushing 10 weeks. So I'm not even sure we're in single digits yet in terms of weeks. We're in single digits for months, but that should be the case for everybody. But yeah, so the schedule moving right along. Martin Luther King is game 3 here, week 3, September 9th, this Friday, back at Gurski, and we will preview that game momentarily. But before we do, the last announcement here we have is the championship team reunion. Each year, the Wilson Football Tradition Club welcomes back previous teams that are celebrating a championship anniversary. And this year is one near and dear to my heart. My senior season, fall 2002, is being recognized for our 20th anniversary of that undefeated regular season and a district runner-up squad from the fall of 2002. That is this Friday during the game against Martin Luther King at Gurski. And looking forward to hanging out with a dozen plus fellow players, coaches. We got a couple trainers coming back. So, yeah, it's going to be a nice little reunion with fellow teammates from that team in 2002. And I always enjoy talking about what that squad did. And you can always check out a recap of that season and a lot of the seasons on BulldogHour.com. All right, so Justin, let's get in now to the game against Central Dauphin. I'm going to pull up the highlights if we want to just talk through this, and I'm going to get situated to hopefully broadcast our interview because we did track down a few players after the game. I'm going to play that for you, but we're going to do the quick game recap, which we bring in from Huddle each week. So, Justin, if you want to just talk through that.
Yeah, absolutely. So, we know how it ended. It ended 17-10. And so when we look at this, this was one of our early drives here. And this was really nice pass by Tommy. I think that was to Eddie Case, correct?
Yes, it was.
Yeah, and it was beautiful. And we had called a timeout right before that, and I think they got the look they wanted. A beautiful connection there. And that put us up fairly early, 7-0 after a little back and forth. We also had another nice completion there. Tommy Tommy, you could see the progression from week 1 to this week. We were also able to give him a little bit more time, which is helpful. But he also made some really good decisions bringing it down and running. There was another nice pass kind of crossing across the middle. One of those, and I forget which one it was, but we had been backed up pretty far. And this was after we had let them off the hook on their scoring drive by helping with some penalties where we were in like first or second and long because of a penalty. And then next thing you know, we were able to kind of cut down and pick up the first down eventually, which was really nice. There was another huge gain, again, coming across the middle. But again, we were giving Tommy time. The receivers were running great routes and getting open, and that's kind of the key. Here we go. I think that, this is Cam's long run. And it looks like, he's going to be forced out. And then, nope, off he goes. And it was funny because they definitely kicked away from him all night. He got the ball in his hands on a couple returns, but it was in such a way that it was really difficult. Seeing Cam in that running back spot was something we didn't see a lot of before, but we knew that was a possibility just because you can kind of put him all over the place. That was another big first down pickup there. Overall, it was just one of those things where, and like we say every time, like you can't really go by all the stats that pop up here automatically on.
Yeah, they're not exactly the best.
But we'll touch on stats in a little bit.
Yeah, I have the list here.
But just thinking, like, the game started out, Wilson hops up 7-0, and it was good. The defense looked good. The offense looked like they were getting going a little bit. But it did feel like after that initial part, the field kind of felt like it was sloped like towards the end zone we were defending a little bit. The most of the second quarter was played at the scoreboard end, basically, where Central Dauphin was kind of in plus territory. Most of that half, or most of that quarter, it seemed like. However, their touchdown drive was a longer drive. Like I said, we got helped by a couple penalties that kind of bailed them out. But other than that one drive, Central Dauphin did not really move the football against us. They took advantage of field position, a little bit, but not to the degree that they needed to. So it was kind of weird because, like, at halftime, you kind of felt like Wilson could feel like, all right, well, we weathered the storm because we started off okay, but then we did not play well in the second quarter. And we're still tied 7-7 on the road at Central Dauphin. Okay, there's a lot you can take away from that because there were a lot of things that we could shore up in the second half. On the other hand, I'm sure Central Dauphin was kind of feeling like, look, they jumped out, things were going their way, and then we kind of fought back and we're tied at halftime. They had to be fairly pleased at half as well. I feel like both sides probably felt like they left a lot out there in the first half, but it was really interesting. I feel like we made really good adjustments, and not that the adjustments aren't made each week, but it comes down to, it's not as simple as recognizing something in the first half and then just, snapping a finger and making it happen. It has to take coaches recognizing it, communicating that with the players, then the players executing it. And I thought that's exactly what happened. You could see in the third and fourth quarter how we kind of flash back to Martin Luther King, or not Martin, our game against Roman Catholic. The first few series, everything looked from a fundamental standpoint, everything looked kind of like technically sound. You know what I mean? Like we were doing lots of the little things correctly. And then we ended up getting away from that for lots of variety of reasons. Some of that being going against that many just incredible athletes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I felt the similar thing this week. I felt like we started off very sound in lots of things we were doing, and then we kind of got away from that. But I felt the difference this week was that we were able to regroup. We got to halftime, and then we were able to regroup. And when we regrouped at halftime, we came out and kind of found our footing again, and we're doing much better with the little things in the second half. And that's the difference. That's the difference, especially early in the season. That's such a big difference between, being able to make some positive plays and limit your mistakes and having them come back to bite you. Like we said, the Roman Catholic game, a lot of people see the final score, but that wasn't indicative of how that entire game went.
Right. No,
And
and
so
I did. It's
I was glad to see us not have that. I said it after the Roman Catholic game. Like, the key is there's so much to learn from that game. We can't let it become 2 games. Like, you can't let one bad game become 2 bad games. And I feel like they didn't. They regrouped. Is there still plenty to work on after the Central Dauphin game? Absolutely. But I don't know that anyone could watch that game and not think we got better from week 1 to week 2, which is exactly, in the big picture, that's what you want. And then what I want to do on next week's show is talk about how we got better from week 2 to week 3. You know what I mean? Like,
Right.
if we do that, then you start to build something, because all those small gains over the course of the season really start to add up. And you know what? We were seeing it there on some of those highlights. The junior quarterback was throwing a touchdown to a junior wide receiver. Like, it's just some of those things really start to stand out when as the season goes on. So seeing those things happen is nice.
Yeah, I found it funny all week, leading up to the game, of the people who reference the Roman Catholic game, and you could tell that they didn't read recap articles. Like, they were just looking at the box score or the final score and trying to draw conclusions without actually knowing what happened.
Right.
And if you read the recap on MikeDragosports.com, Mike laid it out that things started to fall apart in the fourth quarter after, it became a huge deal that they needed the score, and then there became issues, and there was turnovers as they were kind of trying to force some things to happen. The first, wasn't it 26-15 with like 8 minutes to play?
Yeah.
In the fourth quarter.
And we were driving in the red zone.
So but that's fine. I would rather people look at the 46-15 score and be like, "Oh, that game wasn't close." That's fine. You can think that, because you're underestimating the team, and obviously that's the preferred spot. So yeah, so that was a good recap of the game. Wilson, I feel like outside of the second quarter, Wilson controlled most of that game.
Yes. In the second quarter, it was very clear to me Central Dauphin controlled the game.
Yes.
And I don't know. You don't know how it would have been, but to get into half at 7-7, not down, I think was huge. Because you can just reset and be like, all right, all the ups and downs in that first half, we have to outscore them by 1 the rest of the way. You know what I mean? Like,
right.
It's not like, oh, we have to outscore them by 7 or 8, No, we just have to win the second half. You talk about win each quarter.
Yep.
Well, I'd say we won the first quarter. You could argue it was a little bit back and forth, but in my mind, they clearly won the second quarter, but I argue
for sure.
we won the third and fourth. So
right, yeah, and we ended up winning 3 out of 4 quarters. That gave us the game.
Right.
We obviously, everyone prefer there to be a little bit more of a cushion at the end, and not have to worry about, are they going to kick it on sides? Or, what do we have to do? We have to get first downs. We have to make them use their timeouts.
Right.
And in the end,
but how is this 2 years in a row? Did we do this last year? What, I forget, where we get the ball at Central Dauphin and we just don't give it back.
Well, it happened the last all 3 wins. It was essentially
Right.
like that. Because I remember back in 2019, the big deal was that we got the ball back with like 9 minutes or whatever, and just
that's
ran
the
out
one
the
that
clock.
sticks out in my head.
And then last year, Central Dauphin got 2 quick scores to make it look like a much closer game than it was, and we had to recover an onside kick and run out the clock then. And this time, we got the ball back with a few minutes to go, and we're stopped, thinking we were going to have to punt, and they were going to give about 20 seconds to throw a desperation, few passes, but they opted to go for it on 4th and 2, converted, and game was over.
Right.
So when the offense needed to do it, the last 3 games against Central Dauphin, they were able to get it done.
Not many teams can say that.
No. They're just like when we talk about Wilson, and again, Mike Drago had an article about the few teams that have a winning record against Wilson, and it's few and far between. There are not a lot. You had to have a minimum of 5 games played. There's always going to be those random 1 or 2 games,
Right. Like we're not counting Roman Catholic yet.
or North Allegheny,
Right.
Pine Richland, Pittsburgh Central Classic. Those are all one-time meetings. And any team that you've played multiple times, and there's just a few schools, and some of them don't even exist anymore.
Right.
Like
right.
Lebanon Catholic,
Right.
no longer a program. West Reading no longer a football team. So there's not a lot of teams that have a winning record, and Central Dauphin and Harrisburg are 2 of the big ones that are out there. But
Right.
Wilson just closed the gap a little bit with Central Dauphin winning this meeting, and now 3 in a row to bring the 13-game series to 7-6. Still favor the Rams, but Wilson is hanging right there with them. So statistically speaking, the game, Cam Jones, Justin mentioned, got a lot more time at running back this week. Ended up carrying the ball 13 times for 122 yards and the 1 touchdown, which was the big 53-yarder that put Wilson up for good. He averaged 9.4 yards per carry. Watching Cam run the ball, I mean, you see it on the returns, the kick returns, the punt returns, but watching him be so patient
Yes.
in the backfield when you're just kind of like, you got to keep moving. But every carry he proves why he can delay, because he can find the gap and squeak through. And once he gets into the second level, there's a good chance that he could take it to the house.
And that's one of those things that I was thinking of. I'm like, last week he had a 77-yard touchdown.
The punt return. Yeah.
And this week he had a 53-yard touchdown. Even if you take out the 53-yard run, he still averaged almost 6 yards a carry. Which is really something against Central Dauphin.
Yeah.
Quick calculator use by me. But like when you count that in, and obviously it counts, he was pushing 9.5 yards a carry.
Right.
That's unbelievable. That's almost a first down every time he touched the ball.
Now there's a chance that Cleveland Harding will be back after missing this past week and most of the week 1 loss to Roman Catholic with an injury. So we'll see what happens there. I would expect to see Cam and Amir also handle ball carrying duties. And also with an athlete like Tommy Hunsicker at quarterback, obviously he's going to get to run the ball a lot too. And he actually had more carries, both by design on reads and then also scrambles than Cam did. He had 19 carries for a net of 57 yards. He only averaged 3 yards a carry.
Which is also going to happen, though, when you're lined up and you're running like a read with Cam. People are gearing to take Cam away. And so they're going to say, oh, yeah, we're going to make the quarterback keep it. Well, Tommy
can
a number of times, like, okay. And he made him pay a number of times, and that's huge.
He was sacked 3 times, so that takes away his his rushing total. But he threw the ball 15 times, completed 9, had 1 touchdown to Eddie Case, the junior wide receiver, who caught 4 of Tommy's passes for 67 yards and the score. Cam also hauled in 3 passes for 16 yards. Mekhi Cooper had a big reception, 37-yarder to set up, I believe, the field goal. Is that what ended up setting up the field goal? I think it was.
I think so.
Yeah. So in the third quarter, Mekhi had a big reception from Tommy that ended up the drive ended with the field goal from Ben Rada to put Wilson up. A lead they wouldn't relinquish the rest of the way. And then Cam's rushing touchdown padded it a little bit more, and things got interesting at the end, but Wilson ended up coming through. So that was your offensive statistic. Defensively speaking, I was Ryan McMillan with the big night. He had 9 tackles and the forced fumble. So he was flying around, the junior linebacker.
Right. So we've talked a number of times about juniors, but then, man, some of the seniors really made their presence felt like on the defensive side of the ball. Not that they didn't on the offensive side, but and we'll hear from some of them later. But some of them really had an impact on this defense and their really good performance on Friday night.
Yeah, and possibly the biggest of all was the interception by senior Nate Capitano from his safety position that ended one of Central Dauphin's drives late in the game, in the fourth quarter. So it was a huge play by Nate. Not only did he have that interception, he also had 5.5 tackles.
Had a couple big hits too.
Yeah, he did, and he's not afraid to come up from that safety spot and finish the job. Landon Farrell returned after missing the Roman
Yes.
Catholic game. A huge boost for the defense to get another linebacker in there, and he had 4.5 tackles. 3 of them were for loss too. So he's making his presence felt in his game back. And Rafael Fernandez, another senior, Nick Weitzel, another senior, both with 4 tackles. So like you said, the seniors definitely stepping up. And Nick Krikona back at linebacker after getting nicked up a little bit in the first game. He's back and had 3.5 tackles as well. So it was nice to see everyone contributing on defense like they did, and things looking a little bit better this week than it did in game 1.
Right. And like I said, I say it's easy for me. Like, I don't really have anything to do with it. But, like, all right, that first game, that's one where you have to learn your lessons, but you pick up and you move on, because that first week means nothing after the game. Like, you learn from it and then you move on, and let's get better for week 2. And I really feel like they did. They not just, and again, one of the key things was not just in some of the things that were struggles in week 1, like we were able to clean up some of those things, but also some of the things that popped up in week 2, like in that second quarter, some of the things that came up and that were giving us problems, we were able to make adjustments and have a much more sound second half. I feel like, even like, it's Central Dauphin. It's always going to be a grind out kind of win. And so, but to be able to do that, have veteran guys and young guys like contributing at key times and key spots, it's what this team's going to need. And that only helps the team as we move forward.
Yeah, for sure. So it was tough this week to settle on a player of the game. I think obviously we could have gone with Cam again, just what he was able to contribute on both sides of the ball. Especially they kind of neutralized him in the special teams, in the kicking game, punt return game. Central Dauphin had a fantastic punter and special teams job.
Yeah.
Well done by the coaching staff, the players, and that punter, that kicker in particular.
But again, that's what I would expect from them. Like, they're not going to overlook it and like accidentally kick it to Cam. Like, they're not going to do that. You know, like
I got a message from Mike Drago last week at the beginning of the week that the Roman Catholic coach Preet messaged him and said that was a mistake by the player. He was not supposed to kick to Cam. That's
funny, because we talked about that
we
last
talked
week,
about
like,
it, which leads me to believe that either he read Drago's article or he listened to the show and immediately messaged Mike to say, yeah, that was not a coaching overlook, or that wasn't us saying, hey, let's see how good this kid is. It was a misplaced punt.
Right, and that's what we talked about. Like, I think those are going to be Cam's biggest chances, is when the player doesn't execute what they've been told.
Right.
And that happens at all levels. Like, I flash back to Tom Coughlin telling them to not punt to Deshaun Jackson, and he runs it back again. And he grabbed the punter before he walked. Yes, it was a glorious game, right? I hope there's lots of that this year. I hope there's lots of coaches telling their punter not to kick the Cam,
and then they can't do it. They don't execute.
They get a little flustered and they do it.
Well, you're in the in or around or near the coaches, both for Wilson and the opponent, by and large, because of the filming that you do for the team. How often do you hear coaches say, we have them in position, but they're not executing? Often, right? I feel like it happens a lot.
I can't tell you.
for Wilson and the opposing coaches saying, we knew exactly what was coming. The kids were there. They didn't make the tackle, or they didn't throw the ball properly, or they missed the cut, whatever it is.
A common one is they stood straight up.
Our favorite thing to say as coaches is, we can't play the game for you. We can put you in position, but you are the one that have to execute. And if you don't execute, bad things happen. And that's what happened when the Roman Catholic kicked the Cam last week and he took it to the house. Central Dauphin wasn't allowing that to happen. But again, Cam honestly could probably be player of the game every game this season. He has that time of athleticism and talent that he's going to be a difference maker.
This 2 weeks and we've started him at 2 different offensive positions, and he starts on defense. He's all over the place. So that's just going to kind of come naturally with that. But
and I know our defensive players and coaches will be disappointed because this player of the game could have been Ryan McMillan for his contributions, as it could have been Nate Capitano because of that timely interception. That was a big play of the game, but for a variety of reasons, it just seems like the offense is the one that gets a lot of the focus, and we don't mean to drive that cliche for any reason other than you got to score points too. And there were moments in the game against Central Dauphin, especially at the beginning, at the end, when someone needed to step up and make a big play. And each time we felt that junior quarterback Tommy Hunsicker was the guy that was able to do that, getting the ball into Cam's hands in space, and then connecting with Eddie Case early in the game, and then helping to run that offense at the end of the game that ended up running out the clock. So no disrespect to the other guys that we just mentioned or anyone we didn't mention, but the Bulldog Hour player of the game for Week 2's win at Central Dauphin is junior quarterback Tommy Hunsicker. And I thought Tommy played a great game. And I know there's a few that he probably wanted back, or, whether it was in the air or on the ground. But overall, 9 of 15, got the passing touchdown, contributed in the run game. Just overall, thought it was a very, very solid game from Tommy. And when it mattered most, he was able to get it done.
Yeah, absolutely. He really stepped up. The offensive unit, with that run game, being able to put up some pretty good run numbers against Central Dauphin, really like that. And we were efficient in the passing game, and that being efficient in the pass game helps that run game so much more. Being able to hit the guys like Eddie and Mackay, just being able to have those threats out there. That's only going to help this team be more balanced, which is awesome.
All right. The last thing we're going to do in our Central Dauphin recap is play the interview we have with the senior players. So we talked to, let's see if I can do this from memory, Landon Farrell, Brendan Hopp, Nate Capitano, and Nick Weitzel, I believe, were the four that we talked to. It's about 3 minutes long. Now, I'm having some trouble getting it set up here, so I'm going to try to transition to the interview. If it doesn't work, don't panic. We'll cut it short, and we'll come back and talk about the MLK game. But let me see if this works. So I'm going to transition to it now, and hopefully you will eventually hear our 4 Bulldogs players talk about the game against Central Dauphin.
All right, we're joined post-game now after Wilson's first victory of the season here at Central Dauphin with 4 senior players joining us here. A few for the first time, but one joining us again, Capitano. Interception tonight. We wanted to get you on here because we want to talk to you about that, but Mr. Appa wants to apologize. He didn't get it on film. So
we'll get it. We'll get it. We'll get
it. All kinds of huddle issues, but
congratulations
on the win, guys. How's it feel to get that first victory? Sure. Great. Landon, your first game you had to miss for last week.
Okay, so that's not really working. It's very choppy. I apologize for that. So we'll have to regroup and try something differently because that's just not gonna cut it. So I apologize for that not working the way we had hoped it would.
On a quick side note, technical issues involving
nothing new.
Everything from the Central Dauphin game is just a theme that's been running since Friday afternoon.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to do my best, and if we have to run that next week, I will, because I do want to give those guys the spotlight, or maybe I can post it after the fact on social media, but I don't like the way that the video wasn't showing up at all, and the audio seemed to be really choppy, and that just doesn't make for good production value. So we're gonna cut that short, and I apologize.
We'll get that to you. We'll get that out.
Yeah, we'll make sure that gets out there because we did get to talk to them, and 3 of the 4 I didn't get to talk to beforehand at the senior player interview. So I wanted to make sure we got those guys on to talk about the game. So we will definitely get that out there for everyone to listen to. Again, it's about 3 minutes long, so we will work on doing that. But for the time being, then, we're going to move on from Central Dauphin, unless there's anything else you had to say about that.
Yeah.
All right, so Game 3 of the 2022 season will be back at Gurski, and we will be welcoming in a familiar foe in the Martin Luther King Cougars, who came to Gurski last year. In the early part of the season, and we've talked about it before when we did the season preview, that Coach Malik wanted to make the return trip, and they wanted to play us again. They wanted to come back to Gurski. He liked the opportunity to play against this program in this part of the state. Wanted his players to be able to do it again. So that's what's happening.
Right.
So it will be Wilson Martin Luther King on Friday, September 9th, kickoff at 7 p.m. And like I had mentioned, it is WFTC night, which is the championship team reunion focused on the squad from the fall of 2002. But in terms of, as I find my preview papers, Martin Luther King, this is the second meeting between the schools. So obviously they don't make that list that we talked about earlier, haven't gotten to the minimum 5 games. But the Cougars are coached by Malik Jones. Last year they were 1-7. They played Belmont Charter in week 1, and I believe they won. I don't know how they fared in week 2, however. The biggest loss for the Cougars was Antonio Green Jr., but they do have a bunch of guys back. And the coaching staff and also the media have talked about how tough it was on MLK last year, because in 2019, I think they were 9-1 and won their Philly Public League division.
Right.
And they may have even made it to, they could have even possibly, I don't think they won districts because I think they were also 6A. Well, they could have been 5A. They might have won districts in 2019.
They lost on Friday to Springside Chestnut Hill Academy.
Okay, what was the score of that?
48-16. But they won week 1 30-14
against Belmont Charter, I believe. Yes.
Yeah. So, and then they have us, and then they play Central Philly. Not a lot of schools would probably
not familiar with a lot.
It's a lot of the Philly public schools after that.
So, if you remember back the game last year, though, you could tell that they had a good amount of talent.
Yeah.
But they hadn't had a lot of time to gel because
it looked like
they
guys
didn't play
played
in the fall of 2020. Right. They played in the abbreviated short spring of 2021.
One game or something.
Yeah, it was weird. Then they had to turn around and come back for the fall of 2021.
And if you remember, lots of schools weren't sure what they were going to do last fall,
or they weren't allowed to practice over the summer or have much opportunities to gel as a team.
Right.
And you could see that there was a lot of potential there, but there were a lot of mistakes that get cleaned up by practicing as a team.
Right, and playing.
So now they got all of last year under their belt. They had a normal spring and summer to get together, and they have a lot of good players coming back. Their key returners are tight end, defensive end Khalid Bueno. The big ones, wide receiver, defensive back Safi Reed, and running back, linebacker Kasir Wimber and Shamir Norton. Those are 3 big athletic offensive playmakers that have also contributed on defense, but they're the ones to look out for, and Reed, Wimber, and Norton. Also, Atif Ward is one of their key two-way linemen, and another defensive back, Amir Muhammad. So they have guys back that have now had a more normal experience with a high school season in the fall last year and then off-season activities this year. So they're a better team this year than they were last year, because I know last year, I think, 50-8, I think was the final, and that game was never in doubt. This can't be a game where you start looking at what's left.
No.
You have to stay focused, and I know that'll be a point of emphasis from the coaching staff all week, but we all know how that goes when you're talking about high school students.
Right. And the idea is to think about, and to their credit, the high school kids, whenever we ask them, that's the answer they give, right? They give us, we're worried about the next game. They're focused on that one. But it is, it is a test of that, like, willpower almost, to put out of your mind what happened last year, because that was such a unique situation. This year's going to be different. I don't know what they're going to bring, but I guarantee you it's going to be different than the experience last year, just because, like you said, those MLK guys, we were their second game last year too, right?
I think
Something like
so,
that.
yeah, I believe
so. So some of them hadn't played football in almost a year and a half or longer, and so it's just, that's really tough on any program. And so, now that they've had that sense of normalcy for a year, you can expect a different experience.
Yeah.
And that can't dictate what we do. Like no matter what, even if it was supposed to be the same, it can't dictate what we do. We need to handle our business. We need to clean up the mistakes. We need to try and avoid that second quarter kind of downturn that we've had kind of the first 2 weeks of the season. That second quarter has not been kind to us either week.
No, you're right.
We talked about it. We would have, by our scorecards, if we're like boxing judges, we would have given Wilson 3 out of the 4 rounds on Friday night. Let's go for all 4. Let's have
complete game.
Right.
Yeah.
Let's win each of the quarters this week.
Let's
improve on the things that we need to. Like I said, I felt that there were a lot of improvements from week 1 to week 2. I want to see that jump to week 3 because you're going to need it. We talked about our little roundup around District 3 and some of those guys. Like, there's a lot of teams that are kind of comparable, I guess, maybe, through 2 weeks as much as you can tell. And we all know, we always talk about how accurate that transitive property is.
Yeah, totally.
But, like, there's a lot of kind of teams that are going to be vying for those 8 spots. So you need to handle your business. You need to continue to get better. That would be my message.
Yeah, not only do we want to win all 4 quarters this week, let's win all 3 phases as well. I'm not saying we didn't this past week, but Central Dolphins sort of neutralized the special teams, and each team had 1 field goal. So, that was kind of more of a push. Obviously, I guess, technically won both offense and defense when you talk about scoring for and against. But let's win all 3 phases of the game, all 4 quarters of the game, move to 2-1, get to that winning record, and then enter league play by and large. Because I know we still have technically a non-league game against Mifflin coming up in week 6, but they are a member of the
on
LL
a Saturday
League.
afternoon. I just feel like we can't have a week where we don't bring that up.
No, because as we've seen, there will still be, as many times as we can say, there's still people that miss that because there was issues with the location of the game Friday night.
It comes up every week, and every week people are like, "Wait, what?
It's
That's
on
a Saturday?"
Yes. Yes, it is. So, Mifflin's on a Saturday, but that's a few weeks ahead. We still have the game this week against Martin Luther King. Then we get to go into Reading for the first game against Reading in a decade. And then also
who
host
also
Cedarcrest,
won on Friday night.
who beat Muhlenberg. Yeah, and they didn't look bad against CD East either the week before. So
and CD East who'd they beat this past week? No, CD East lost.
Yeah, I was going to say
Cedarcrest.
I think they lost. Yeah, Cedarcrest beat CD East,
Right.
and hey, that's who I was about to mention next.
No,
That's
sorry.
who Wilson plays at Gurski the week before going to Shillington to play Mifflin on a Saturday.
Right.
We have Cedarcrest. So there's important games on the schedule coming up, starting this week with Martin Luther King. This Friday, September 9th, 7 o'clock kickoff. It is the Wilson Football Tradition Club night. And also, I missed this. I forgot, the Gold Out.
Yep.
So it'll be, September is Childhood Cancer Awareness Month. So there'll be FTK and Wilson Minithon and the Gold Out activities. So be there for that, to support that event and the fundraising and everything that goes into that. And let's hope for another Wilson win and a good week 3 all around.
Yeah.
I am very interested in what's going on in District 3 6A because Central Dolphins seems to be down this year, or they're not as good as the other powers in and around the district, as we, losing to Central York and Wilson. Coatesville's not District 3, but a perennial power down in District 1. Central Dolphins struggling a bit, but Cumberland Valley has taken that step up after they've been down for 5 years.
It's not the same. They run the spread now.
Oh yeah, they're not the old Cumberland Valley. No,
it's not Cumberland Valley. You remember?
Well, Cumberland Valley is led by Coach Josh Oswalt, who is a Cumberland Valley grad, but was the Central York coach, and that's who they just beat this last week. Now they have weathered the storm under Josh Oswalt. I think this is his. Is this his 3rd year there?
I feel like it is his 3rd year. Yeah.
But so when Wilson came back and beat Cumberland Valley in 2016 in the district championship game, down 14-0, right?
I love that.
14-0 at halftime. Come back to win 28-14. Cumberland Valley, and I don't want to say that game was the reason for it, but Cumberland Valley has been down since that game.
Yes.
The seasons 2017, 2018, 2019, 2020, and 21, they were winning just a handful of games. I think last year things started to look brighter but I think they were hopeful that this would be the year that they took that next step. And judging by the first 2 weeks,
So
being
far, it looks
Township
like
and
they
Central
might be on
York,
their way. Yeah.
right? Those are two teams that have been very strong the last few years, especially these last 5 years for Township and last 2 years for Central York. And I know there are people that think, despite the talent that Central York lost from the team the last 2 years, this team is very good too. Cumberland Valley beat both of them. So Cumberland Valley's one to watch. Obviously, Harrisburg, we know what's going on with Harrisburg. That entire team basically from last year is back, and they're looking at as good or better. Sean Lee, a quarterback, now a sophomore. Makai Hopkins, the bruising running back linebacker. Kyle Williams, speedy wide receiver or athlete, kind of like Cam Jones.
Right.
And a variety of other weapons. And we're not going to dive into Harrisburg yet. We don't even know that Wilson will get to play them this year.
It would be a really good sign if we're
playing Harrisburg again.
previewing Harrisburg game
Right.
at some point months down the road, well after your Christmas tree's up.
Just keep throwing that in there. People are going to think I put it up October 1st, by the way.
That's my goal. That's my goal, to get people.
Is your goal to make people think that or to force me to do it?
No, definitely to make people
Because
think
be
that.
careful what you wish for. But Hempfield right now is looking like the biggest challenge in Section 1.
Yeah.
I
They
know
look good, and we've been on that
we've
train
been saying
forever.
it ever since George Eager took the job. He's in year 3 now too. That's a big year to make a jump. Your system has been in effect.
D lineman get offered by Penn State today.
Yeah, a junior defensive lineman too. He's back next year, so he's a class of 2024 commitment. And he didn't commit. He was offered by Penn State today. But obviously that's a good sign when you're getting Power 5 teams submitting offers to a player on your squad. So Hempfield is definitely one to watch, and that is the Wilson Hempfield game. 1, thankfully, at Gurski this year.
Yes.
That's key. 2, unfortunately, the week after Mifflin, which is a short week because that game is on a Saturday.
Right.
So that's a big one. Not to discount anyone else because we just mentioned Cedar Crest.
Right, and we'll learn more over the next few weeks as to get an idea of what to expect. But like we talked about with this week, got to handle your business. You gotta take
week by week.
Right, you
win
have
by
to
win.
control our game. We need to make sure we're doing the things we're supposed to on offense. Make sure we're doing the things we're supposed to on defense. We've seen it the first 2 weeks. When we do things when we do what we're supposed to do, things are fine. It's when we get forced out of that you start to have issues.
Yeah, so play our game, do your job,
Right.
all that great stuff. That's where we're at. So I am looking forward to opening the league season after the MLK game this week because Reading is getting better. Cedar Crest is getting better. Hempfield is for sure better. Penn Manor, I still think Penn Manor, they've got a lot back from last year.
Right, they returned so much from last year.
So then McCaskey, their quarterback, who's another, I feel like he's been there for 6 years, Matthew Remash, he's going to camps and getting a scholarship offers. I believe he was just at Bloomsburg. So there's talent in the LL League, and I don't know if there'll be parity or if it will break down where there'll be a couple big dogs and then everyone else, or if we're gonna see a lot of teams that go like 3-3 in the league, or is that right? 6 games? Yeah, 6 games in the league. So yeah, but should make for an exciting season. I'm looking forward to covering it here for you. Justin and I will be at Gurski obviously Friday night for the next game. And throughout Lancaster and Lebanon counties for the next 7+ weeks.
We don't leave the county.
I was just going to say, we mentioned this, I think, in one of the off-season shows, but now that we got the trip to Harrisburg out of the way, Wilson does not leave Berks County until Penn Manor in October because host Martin Luther King, go to Reading, host Cedar Crest, go to Mifflin, and then host Hempfield.
It's becoming a weekly occurrence, but we know what away games at Penn Manor means, right? Sugar Bowl. So, yeah, I'm excited. Wilson does not have a game outside of Berks County until October 14th. It's only September 4th. So, hooray.
Yeah, and no excuses to not be at these games.
It's crazy that it happens when the Berks and LL merge. Because I know that meant very little to Wilson's schedule in terms of like, the teams we're playing, Reading being the exception there. But so much of the high school football talk around here this year is like, oh, there's going to be a little bit more travel for a lot of these teams. Not Wilson. It's actually like less.
Yeah,
So.
You get to drive to Reading, I get to drive to Mifflin. Those are the two road games we're talking about before gassing up the car to head to Millersville. So, great, love it. Let's not talk about travel in 2023 because that may be not shaping up to be
that's
great.
a problem for future Joey.
Going down to Roman Catholic, maybe going down to Martin Luther King, depending on what happens there. We'll have to go back to McCaskey then next year. Down to Hempfield, Landisville.
Yeah, we're gonna get some miles next year, but
back to Lebanon for Cedar Crest. They love it there. I am going to inspect the visitors' locker room after that game at the end of September. So we actually have back-to-back Cedar Crest. We go to Cedar Crest at West, and then the next night we host Cedar Crest varsity.
Yeah, I saw that on the schedule.
Got the Falcons back-to-back. Sometimes that works out. So, anything else to say about Dauphin, Martin Luther King, or anything else?
I was pleased with the progress. Let's keep it rolling. Have a good week of practice, and let's hit Friday night ready to go.
Yeah, very thankful that there was minimal attrition. No additional new injuries or not nearly as many as there were in the first week. Right. So hopefully everyone's staying healthy or getting healthy, and we can see everyone back on the field and ready to roll for this game Friday, September 9th against Martin Luther King back at Gurski. So I think that's it for us here at the Bulldog Hour this week. Again, I will post somewhere. Maybe I'll just upload it to YouTube and share the link. The post-game interview we had with those 4 senior players. Sorry that didn't work out again, but check bulldoghour.com or the social media sites for that interview probably sometime tomorrow. But until next time, for Justin Rathoff, I'm Joe Mays. Remember, go Bulldogs.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of the Bulldog Hour. Want more Wilson football? Follow the show on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Subscribe to the podcast on iTunes and SoundCloud. Or visit www.bulldoghour.com. The Bulldog Hour is a featured program on jmnjrradio.com.